Hello. Today we're going to be talking about using connectives, which is going to help you in your Year 7 Writing Like a Scientist project. So what do I mean when I'm talking about a connective? Well, a connective is a word or a small expression which can be used at the beginning of a sentence to link it to the previous paragraph or the sentence before it. These words, as I just said, are at the beginning of a sentence and they are always followed by a comma. In this sense, we can use connectives to add a new idea. We cannot start sentences with "and", but we can use a connective which has a similar meaning, which will make our work sound more academic. To show a difference, so again, we cannot use "but" at the beginning of a new sentence, but there are other expressions we can use. To show the difference, to show the effect, of the previous sentence. So the word "so" is what we would usually use. However, we cannot start sentences with that. To give an example or to add more detail, and finally to show the order or the sequence of events. And what I mean by that is we do this first, then we do this, next we do this. All of these expressions are used in the same way, so once we learn the structure of how to use them, we can just replace the word depending on the context, and we don't need to worry about any complex rules or grammar rules. So, to add a new idea, we can use "in addition", "additionally", "furthermore", and "moreover". These have the same meaning as "and". Remember, we cannot start a sentence with "and". Next, to show a difference, so we cannot start a sentence with but we could use "however", "in contrast", and "on the other hand". We cannot use "so" at the beginning of a sentence, but instead we can use "therefore", "as a result", and "consequently". If we want to give an example, sometimes in informal writing or when we're taking notes, we might put E.G, but we cannot use abbreviations like this in academic writing. What we could say is "for example, comma, to elaborate", or "to illustrate". Finally, to show the sequence of events, we can use "first", "second", "finally", following this, "subsequently". It's better to avoid "then" or "next" because they're not particularly academic. These phrases are just a little bit more sophisticated and will make our work just sound that little bit better. So just to reiterate and just as a warning, in academic writing we should not start sentences with "and", "but", "so", "e.g", "then", "next", and "also". These words are informal in style and they don't show us that we can write in a more sophisticated and academic way. So starting sentences, we cannot start sentences with "and". And if we look at this example, due to the climate of the Sahara, a lot of water will be needed. We cannot start it with "and", but we can use "in addition, comma, additionally, comma, furthermore, comma, or moreover, comma". We need to avoid getting sunburned. It's good not to overuse the same connective again and again, which is why having these 4 options will give you more variety in your work. But it's also important that we don't want to start every sentence with a connective. Maybe you'll do this 2 or 3 times in a paragraph, but no more than that, because there are other ways that we can start sentences, and you want to use a variety of sentences when you're writing. Similarly with "however", so the climate in the Sahara is extremely hot, full stop, however, comma. As you will notice, the connective is in the middle of the sentence, the first word, and is followed by a comma. And we could replace "however" with "in contrast" or "on the other hand". So, extremely hot, full stop, however, comma, at night the temperatures plummet. We cannot use sentences with "so". But what we can do is the strength of the sun is higher than that in Saigon. Therefore, comma, or as a result, and consequently, we need to be careful about to avoid getting sunburned. Now these words are really good to help us develop your ideas. You are clearly making the cause and effect relationship very clear, which is often important in science. This thing has made the next thing happen. And these connectives are a very effective way of being able to link ideas together. To give more information or an example, these expressions, for example, to elaborate and to illustrate, clearly show the reader that you're expanding on the idea that you've just given, and that you're probably going to use a real example, a real case, or maybe even statistics to support your point. So we need to be careful to avoid getting sunburned. For example, we need to keep our skin covered, wear a scarf to protect our necks, and wear a hat. These are ways that we can avoid getting sunburned. For example, I could say to elaborate, and these just show the reader that we're giving extra information. As you will see with all of these examples, the connective after a full stop and followed by a comma. And finally, in connectives, instead of using next, now next is okay in spoken language and it's something that we may use quite often. But in written language, it's better to use one of the words which is circled on the right. To complete our group project, the first thing we need to do is allocate responsibility to all of the members of the team. Then following this, or next, or subsequently, we can undertake our individual research. The advantage of using these connectives is that it allows us to use shorter sentences. Good writing does not mean lots of long and complex sentences. Good writing means that we're writing accurately and concisely, which means that we are giving our information using as few words as possible. We don't need to use big, long sentences. Connectives help us to break down longer sentences and put them into shorter sentences. So good writing is good sentences which are linked well together, and connectives are one way in which we can link it together. So we'll finish this presentation by looking at the example which you saw in class, which was about variable temperatures. As we can see in these paragraphs, 3 connectives have been used. So however, as we'll notice in the middle of the paragraph, after a full stop followed by a comma. Then in addition to this, which is the same as in addition, it's no different, it's used in exactly the same way. So in addition to this, comma, and finally, the word finally, at the beginning of the paragraph followed by a comma, which is showing the readers clearly that this is the final thing I will talk about in this section of the report. So connectives, they're found at the beginning of a sentence. They are followed by a comma. They help link our ideas together. Finally, they act as a clear signpost to the reader about what's coming next. Are you giving a new idea? Are you showing a difference? Are you giving an example? And these connectives act as a signpost which help guide the reader to where you want them to be. Thank you for watching this presentation.